Are the Leafs letting the season slip away? You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Thank you for making us part of your daily listening routine. If you are one of the everydayers here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, new episodes each weekday, Monday through Friday, all Leafs all the time. Dave, the Maple Leafs, not a good weekend for the Buds. They lose in Marner's return Friday night, lose to the Vegas Golden Knights, and then get slapped around by the Colorado Avalanche. They pick up no points on the weekend. They're 5 points out of a playoff spot, and they've now lost 4 in a row. It's not a good spot to find yourselves if you're the Maple Leafs coming off that weekend.
No, especially you got a little bit of, half decent road trip, coming back home, pretty big week, some critical matchups, and it's just has gone completely wayside on them, and it's just piles on, right? Each and every loss, you kind of pick apart different things that are going wrong, some of the trends that keep kind of happening with each game that they're losing, and it's frustrating. Things are happening both on and off the ice. Some players are getting showing their frustrations in stupid ways.
Yeah, we'll get into that Nylander mess in a little bit, because that was interesting, and he might have himself in a little bit of hot water. But yeah, there's a lot of emotions going around right now, whether it's on the ice, off the ice. But I don't know if it's a good emotion, Dave. You got Nylander flipping the bird to fans, and you've got Jake McCabe after the Colorado game coming out and saying, we're not playing with a lot of confidence. Like this team's just not playing very confident right now. They've now lost 4 games in a row. They've picked up 1 of a possible 8 points in this homestand. Like it's very evident that they're not playing with a whole lot of confidence right now. And it's a bad time to be in that spot. And, they're losing games to good teams. So we knew it was going to be a tough stretch, but only going 1 out of 8 points wasn't something that they could afford to do. That's the issue. They kind of pissed away points early in the season, with bad losses to non-playoff teams early on, where now it's like you can't afford to have these stretches where you lose 4 games in a row. And that's unfortunately where the Leafs find themselves. And now they're 52 games into the year, and they're 5 points out of a playoff spot. And now even Florida has jumped them in the playoff odds. And they're not just on the outside looking in, and there's only one team they got to pass. They got to pass Philly. They got to pass Florida. They got to get in through Boston. And they're now, sitting 2 games in hand on Philly, or Philly's got 2 games in hand on Toronto. Florida's got a game in hand on Toronto. And the Leafs not in a good spot right now, and their play isn't either. And I don't know, how concerned are you, Dave, that maybe this team, let me ask you this, because I think for the first time after watching that Colorado game, for the first time in a while, you could say early on in the season, you could have went and be like, oh, this isn't a playoff team. But after the weekend, I think I'm ready to say that I'm not sold the Maple Leafs make the playoffs this year. I'm not sold. That doesn't look like a playoff team. And what we've seen over the last the last week, really, because those are playoff teams. And if that's how you perform up against the best in the NHL, the top teams, if you can't hang with them, maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. And maybe the Maple Leafs are better off, kind of taking a step back, selling off some pieces this year, as opposed to, trading and acquiring guys to get better. Maybe this isn't a playoff team.
That's a big one here for me, is just people keep kind of talking about what they should do with the deadline, and it's just this year we kind of knew it was going to be a bit of a transition year. It was not going to be an easy year. Now, do we expect the Atlantic Division to be this competitive? We thought it was going to. Some of these teams were going to eventually take a step forward. Maybe not as much of a leap as we expected, considering where the Leafs were last year. But yeah, it's a bit of a, I call it gut check time in a lot of ways. Like, not just the players, but this is now like management has to seriously think about how the last few years have gone. How much has been invested into this team? How much has been really depleted from this team? And just be like, you know what? You don't have to go for it, and you don't have to necessarily sell off everything to still remain competitive. But at the same time, this team is in a very difficult position where they're not bad enough to tank like the Vancouver Canucks and in some way the Jets, although they're not tank the way that they're playing. It's not considered a full out tank, but like they can't just like barely miss the playoffs and then have the lottery pick kind of screw them as well.
Well,
that's the part that makes this all, and that's the part that worries me about all this, is that management can't just be like, oh, well, at the same time, we have a first round pick that's not ours, and we can't just give it in and then see that pick end up, biting us in the butt, like it's done so many times in the past when we've traded with Boston.
Yeah, I just don't understand that thought process. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that's almost like a loser's mentality where you're more focused on what's happening outside your building than inside your own, right? Like, if that's the fear, well, we can't finish on the outside looking in because Boston has our draft pick. It's like, well, Boston has your pick regardless. If you make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, unless you finish with a top 5 draft lottery position, which is unlikely. I don't think they're that bad where they'll drop off that much. They would have to drop off and end up, what would that be, 28th, which has 48 points. There's a 9-point buffer between Toronto and Calgary, who currently is considered a top 5 or a bottom 5 team. I don't think that Calgary is going to make up that much of a gap between Toronto. As poor as the Leafs are playing, they're not that bad. But are they good enough to be a playoff team? It's questionable. It's definitely questionable. And I think if they're fully healthy, yes, we've seen a fully healthy Leafs squad, and they play, quite well when everyone's there, when Chris Tanev is there, when Oliver Ekman-Larsson is fully healthy, when William Nylander is in the lineup. You can see, okay, this looks like a group that can at least hang with some of the big boys in the NHL. We saw that a couple weeks ago when the Maple Leafs went into Colorado and beat them, but no William Nylander tonight, and they got beat pretty handily. He talked about a team playing without confidence. Well, that's a guy who has a lot of confidence and a lot of personality on the ice. And when he's not in your lineup, I mean, go look at the Leafs record, this season without William Nylander, since he's been out, right? Like, he left in the middle of that Vegas game. Well, they went on to lose that game against the Vegas Golden Knights. And then they've only won one game since, and they needed overtime to do it. So they're in total, were they 1-3-1 or 1-3-2, I guess. Just one win in those games since his injury. And I think that has something to say at the fact they're not playing with confidence. They're also just not healthy. And it doesn't seem like he's going to be ready to play, over the next couple of games. And let me tell you, that game against Buffalo that's imperative. That is an imperative 2 points that the Maple Leafs must get, because it's another team that they're kind of chasing down, and they can't afford to be giving up points within the division anymore. They just can't. It's gut check time. If you're the Maple Leafs, they got to figure it out. Is if they don't, it's a tough stretch from now until the Olympic break. There's 5 games left. I think they need at least 8 points in the next 5 games before the Olympic break to be considered buyers at the deadline. If they don't get 8 out of 10 points between now and that Olympic break, and you're looking, you got Buffalo, you got Edmonton. There's some winnable games there. Vancouver, Calgary, very, very winnable games. And then you got Seattle as well. So there are winnable games, but you need to pick those up after what we've witnessed over the course of this last week here.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Like, I think people saying to make the declaration right now of what the Leafs are, I think is a little bit tough. Teams that are sellers, like Vancouver made the determination quite early because they had a superstar player that they knew they wasn't going to be around. Opportunity to go and make that move. The Leafs aren't in that situation right now. Like they're not like Vancouver. They're not like those teams that are ready to just pack it in right now. And there will be a point in time where they'll have to make that decision. And like I see a team like New York, like if you decide to sell off on a few players, there's going to be teams that are going to be willing to buy. So you can take advantage of, saying if we don't feel we're ready to compete this year, then let's take advantage of maybe some other teams now that want to give us something for our players.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what Boston did last year, right? Like Boston sold off some pieces, got some assets, got some new blood into the organization, and retooled on the fly. And now they're sitting in a playoff spot, right? Like Buffalo is one of those teams that's ahead of Toronto in that playoff mix, and they're right there again. So maybe take a page out of their playbook. There's only a couple games left for them to prove that they're a team that is deserving of being invested in. But as of now, and especially coming off those performances, losing to Vegas, in a big game again, didn't get up for it, wasn't ready to go from the start. It was costly. And the exact same problem in Colorado. Wasn't ready to go from the start, found themselves in a 2-0 hole, and they had to try and come back for that, and obviously was unable to. So a lot of the same issues persisting in these games when they lose. They often are slow to start. They dig a hole, and then they just don't necessarily have the offense to come back like they used to, right? No Mitch Marner, obviously, with the Nylander injury. It's all on Matthews' shoulders. And, even Matthews hasn't scored a goal in a few games here, which that potentially could be part of the problem as well, that, his offense has kind of dried up a little bit here over the last few games. But yeah, we'll take a quick break. Let's dive back into the weekend games a little more specific. We'll chat the game against Vegas. Anthony Stolarz returned to the ice. Didn't see that coming. And a loss to Colorado. Middle finger from the Leafs on the ice. Middle fingers from the Leafs off the ice. We'll get into all of that later on here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can be overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has the time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I love how it tracks all of your subscriptions. It lets you cancel them right in the app with just a few tips. No more hunting down customer service numbers. And the automatic transaction categorization is a game changer. You can finally see exactly where your money is going each month. You can set budgets, goals, get personalized insights, receive real-time alerts on large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances, and it'll even consolidate your checking, savings, loans, and investments into a single dashboard so you get a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple. And if you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official and join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. Check the description, the link in the description below to learn more about our team's community. The Maple Leafs losing twice this weekend, so they didn't make up any ground in the playoff race. They lose 6-3 to the Vegas Golden Knights, 4-1 to the Colorado Avalanche. Dave, let's go back to Friday, because that was a big game. We pumped that game up pretty good as one of the biggest, highly anticipated games, I think, on the Maple Leafs schedule this season, and maybe even quite some time when it comes to regular season games. And to lose in the fashion they did, to start the game in the fashion they did, and there was, we'll get to the Stolarz discussion on top of it as well. What did you make of kind of what went down in Leafs Vegas Friday night?
Yeah, it was a very frustrating game to watch. Obviously, the Mitch Marner stuff kind of dominated the whole thing, and you knew that all this stuff that was going on was really pushing Vegas to be really motivated to come out, support Mitch, play the game for Mitch, and the Leafs, like, kind of just the tone of how all these games have gone since they've come back. They flat, don't look very, they didn't bring the intensity. They go down, and then you see them have a bit of a pushback, and it's just like, where was that 2 periods ago?
Yep.
And
same thing, Colorado. Exact same thing. Slow start, bad first period, down 2 Cobb, and then you start to pick things up, and you have a good half period. But you got to do that from puck drop, or else this is what's going to happen against good teams. You might be able to get away with this against non-playoff clubs and lesser teams, but against the Colorados and the Vegases of the world, they won't let you come back, because once they build the lead, they either continue to build it, or they sit back and they just don't let you get a whole lot of offense yourself. And they have good goalies, and they know how to defend, and they can keep you on your toes or on your heels for that matter. And that's exactly what ended up happening. It was kind of a carbon copy start for both games, and they got got. I would say there was some controversy, though, in the Vegas game. They opted to activate Anthony Stolarz. So we had obviously recorded the night before. Anthony Stolarz not on the radar at that point. He was not on the radar to start that hockey game, to be activated. He was still with the Marlies, we thought, practicing. And all of a sudden, you catch wind that he's in the starter's crease at morning skate and is the projected starter of the game. What went through your mind when you heard that news, and seeing how it played out? What did you make of that whole decision?
It was, I was just like, oh, really? Like, okay, that was an interesting decision. And I'm just like, it kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like, we thought, okay, maybe we'll see him get a stint with the Marlies, get a game in there, get some practice time before. The guy's been off since November.
Yeah.
November 11th. The way, your first game back, go Vegas Golden Knights. One of the, as you said, game that had a lot of anticipation behind it. And the frustrating part is, like, I don't blame Anthony Stolarz for how that game went, but he didn't, like, you could tell this guy was off for a couple months when just by how he was playing in that game. Like, the rebounds and not looking as sharp on some of the goals as well.
Yeah, I will say it's not like he was the reason why they lost. I'm not blaming Anthony Stolarz on the reason why they lost. They didn't play very well in front of him, specifically to start that hockey game. But it was just a curious decision, like a game that means so much, at least to the fan base. And you would hope that it meant a lot to the guys in the room, considering where they are in the standings. Every game should mean a lot. To kind of roll the dice on a big one like that, and that's the game you decide to kind of make a move like that, where you bring your goaltender back after missing like 10 weeks of hockey, and you're going to spring him back into action in a highly emotional, massively anticipated game. It was very bizarre to me. It blew up in their face. He allowed a goal in the first shot he saw. I believe 2 goals on the first 5 shots he saw. Settled in, once the Maple Leafs, the whole team settled in, into the game and somewhat made a game of it until it wasn't. But I thought it was a very bizarre situation there for them to bring Anthony Stolarz back. I mean, I'm glad that he's back and healthy and ready to go. Sounds like he was okay and should be in line to possibly start in Buffalo tomorrow. And we can get back to that true tandem that the team expected to have early in the season. And hopefully he can provide, quality goaltending like we saw a year ago. But I did think that it was bizarre. Like, why not just hold off until maybe the Sunday Colorado game, right? Like, why did it have to be the game against Vegas to throw him out there? Just almost seemed to like it was a bit of a tone deaf roster move, like it almost had Remember when Vladdy got scratched on May 2nd?
Canada Day.
No, I think it was Victoria Day. I want to say.
Was it Victoria Day? Okay, may have been Victoria Day.
One of those two. It's either Victoria Day, like the Monday, or maybe it was Canada Day. But I feel like either way, it was one of those two. And it was just a tone-deaf organizational move. It was an off day on the calendar. It was May 2-4?
It was May 2-4, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a scheduled day off for him on his calendar by Sports Science. But it was just such a tone-deaf move. It almost felt like that in a way for me with the decision to start Stolarz over Wall, or even Hildeby for that matter in this game. But what are you going to do? They made that call.
You know what? The worst thing about that, you hear Berube talk about it. They asked him the decision, and he essentially said, not my choice. Like, he almost admitted, not my call. And it's just like, okay. Like, I get it.
Friction between the coach and the GM? Maybe.
I think this was not so much a Treliving thing. Apparently it was more of a Stolarz situation where if he were to come back, it would be in the NHL.
Sure, but again, why in that game?
No, I don't disagree with that. I think, like, I think even Colorado might have been a tough one to throw him into as well. Like, Buffalo probably would have made more sense. Like,
sure, but like it's a Sunday it's a Sunday game, afternoon, 1 o'clock start. There's less eyeballs. There's less, anticipation toward that game. Like there's a lot of eyeballs there. Not for Stolarz, but for Marner. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Stolarz is there. Craig Berube dropped a weight on his face and had massive zippers all on his head. Like Friday was a wild, wild morning.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I don't know if it's just not I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense. And like now I think like the pressure's also on Stolarz too. Like when he was injured, he wasn't looking so hot. He's gotta come back because we were lauding the contract. His play last year was really good. And part of the reason why we're talking about this season hasn't gone so well is he hasn't exactly been at his best, right?
880 save percentage. He's got an 880 save percentage.
Not good enough.
And he's allowed 10 goals above expected. Definitely not good enough. That's
Ottawa Senators level goaltending. That's not good enough.
That's a shot. That's a shot to them. They beat Vegas 7-1.
I know.
They can beat Vegas. They can beat Vegas. They're only 2 points back of Toronto right now. The Ottawa Senators.
Look, Vegas. That was Vegas's cup win on Friday. Okay, like they put it all. Sure. They poured it all out. With the way Jack Eichel was celebrating and Mark Stone was celebrating, I'm just like, okay.
Here's Dave. You can't call that their cup win. That's a team that actually can win. The Stanley Cup. You can't call a Friday.
Okay, that was like their defining moment of the season for Vegas, who have not exactly played well. As we just saw, they lose 7-1 2 days later.
No, that was Colorado. Colorado hasn't played very well either. Like they lost, I think, 4 of the last 5 games.
I think they lost.
Yeah, they lost 7-3. And just in total, they've lost like 4 of the last 5. Like they allowed 23 goals over their last 5 games. Like Colorado hadn't been playing well either. And then all of a sudden, they look like the Avalanche again against the Maple Leafs. So, the Leafs just can't seem to get a real good stretch. They had the one, right, coming off of the holiday break, and they went, 10, 11 straight games with a point. And since then, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. It's not a good spot. Not a good spot to be in. The one other thing that I wanted to touch on before we kind of move on to Colorado briefly, before getting into the Nylander stuff. Odd look for Auston Matthews. Didn't speak to the media at all on Friday, pre-game or post-game.
Okay, like you and I both know, Mike, that sometimes players get the option to say if they want to do media stuff, and sometimes the people behind the scenes dictate who goes up as well, right? Like reporters can request.
So do you want to explain to those who haven't had the chance, right? Like the everyday man doesn't know really what it's like there. You've been to a lot of these, I've been to them. Do you want to explain kind of how post-game, pre-game media works?
Yeah, especially like with the Leafs. Like it's not like other sports sometimes where the locker room's open, you can go to wherever you want, especially for home games. Leafs bring like at practices, the Leafs have an area that they bring the players to do media when it's a home game. Yeah, so like Berube gets the podium, and the Leafs have like kind of like a scrum area, and they'll just bring the player there. So like it's not like a media member can be like, so we're gonna get Auston Matthews right now.
Well, okay, so you can request players.
You can
say, hey, we want to talk to Auston, or we want to talk to Willie, or we want to talk to Stolarz or whatever. So you can request players. That is,
it's just whether you're going to get that request fulfilled. That's another situation there.
Exactly, and I find it hard to believe that no one asked for Auston Matthews prior or after the game against Vegas, where Mitch Marner made his return, especially after Matthews made his comments to Mark Masters on the broadcast. It was either pre-game or after the first intermission, where he quite literally said, I don't want to answer any of these questions anymore. And he didn't want to answer any more Mitch questions.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's a coincidence that on Friday, pre-game or post-game, Matthews did not speak to the media. And as the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially coming off of a loss in a big game like that, it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's not captain.
It's not leadership.
Nope.
It's not leadership. 2 parts.
John Tavares would never miss a media day like that. Dion Phaneuf, even after Salutgate, Dion Phaneuf went out and spoke to the media and took bullets. Wafflegate, Dion Phaneuf went out to the media and took bullets. It's what the captain's supposed to do. Sundin, media, every single time. I don't know how Matthews got away with this. I really don't.
2 parts. And it kind of worked in Lee's favor that pre-game, a lot of media went to go and see Marner at the Vegas hotel. And a lot of them were not at the pre-game skate.
True. Because I spoke with Mark Masters. I was on Toronto radio. I was doing the TSN 1050 afternoon show, and I had asked Masters, "Hey, did you have the balls to ask Matthews a Marner question? Is he open to those today?" Kind of riffing off of what happened last week, and he said, "Oh, I didn't go to Matthews' availability. He didn't speak this morning." He said, "But I was at Marner's availability because if I was there, I would have requested him for sure to get a quote." But he didn't speak to the media. And then it turns out that I believe there was a request made for him to speak, and he did not come out. Steve Simmons wrote an article about it. I don't know if you saw Steve Simmons wrote about it in his Sunday column today, but he had a pretty scathing piece about that whole situation.
There's no excuse for it. He should be maybe don't have to talk every pregame. You cannot not talk after the game as the captain, win or lose.
Well, that game specifically.
Yes, he did speak after tonight's game, so clearly it was okay for tonight's game to speak. Like, look, I understand this is probably not a situation you're, great. It's not a situation you're loving because, Mitch was a teammate and it's been talked about all, to death. I get it. But you got to own up to it. You're the highest paid player. They went through this whole big thing about transitioning the captaincy from Tavares to Matthews because they were like, it's Matthews' team, and they talked glowingly about his leadership and all this stuff. Well, that's not what we got in this situation. And, again, this is one of those things where the person that has to stand up and deal with it, it's the coach, it's the GM, and it's a few players on the team that have to go to Matthews and say, We need more from you, bud. And like that, but a locker room requires that.
Think about how tough that is.
Oh, it's not easy at all. Absolutely.
I think the GM and coach absolutely can demand that. But could you imagine being John Tavares and walking up to Matthews and being like, hey, like, you need to act more like a captain. We're not getting enough out of you as our captain. Like, if he says that, like, if you're Matthews, you should just turn around, take the C off your sweater, and put it right back on John. If he's the one who notices it and has to say something to get that out of Auston, like, like Morgan Riley, how do you go up to your captain and say that? It's such a difficult thing to have to do it. You shouldn't have to. Like, that's part of being the captain. That's part of being, the leader of men in what is the most historic franchise, arguably, in all of hockey. It's an honor to be the captain, and there's certain responsibilities that go toward it. And one of those is dealing with the media, the good, the bad, and seems like he wasn't willing to do it on Friday. He wasn't playing the role as the captain of the Maple Leafs on Friday, and it caught a lot of people's attention, I will say. I've
heard it too from people, and like at times those things get overblown, but when the team's not doing well, it's the captain that has to step up and be the step in front and take the heat. You signed up for it. Like the Leafs didn't just go one day and say, "Oh, by the way, you're captain." No, like it was something that they approached him with. And
well, let me. Here's a quote from today. David Alter tweeted this out. This was Auston Matthews was asked what leaders do to help dig themselves out of a hole. He said, quote, "Everybody just has to be better, has to play better, have to do the little things just a little bit harder, a little bit better, and especially when you're going through a tough time. It's hard. You're going through adversity. It's bringing everybody up and pushing yourself to be better." So, okay, the back half, sure. But the front half was that everybody just has to be better, has to play better, have to do the little things just a little bit harder. Like, the question was, what do you, as the leader, as the captain, have to do? And his answer was, well, everyone else has to step up. Like, that's not...
We call that a fastball down the middle, like a softball pitch that you're just supposed to hit out of the park and say, "Yep, you know what? I haven't been good enough." Starts with me.
That's what you gotta say. It starts with me. I haven't been good enough. I haven't scored in 2-3 games. I haven't been able to get to that level. I got to dig in. I got to work harder and lead by example, and hopefully and we've seen it when he went on that goal scoring pace where he scored 11 goals in a 12-13 game span. They were winning games, right? That was part of that stretch where they had won, or at least put up 10 straight games so they got a point. Matthews was great in that stretch. He had like 19 points in that stretch. Now it's gone a little quiet the last few here, and it's a big reason as to why they're losing. So look, it's no secret that their success is solely tied to whether or not Auston Matthews can play at an MVP pace. And if he's not doing that, and then he's not, speaking to the media and doing his captainly duties at the same time, it's not a good look. Not a good look at all. You know what else wasn't a good look? William Nylander flipping off a live camera in the middle of a broadcast with a smile on his face, trailing in a game at home against the Colorado Avalanche. We'll get into middle finger gate, flip off gate, next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. If you ever hired someone who looked good on paper, wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want the right candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your posts at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. It boosts your posts to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference because according to Indeed data, sponsored job posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to hire a more report a hire than a non-sponsored job. Spend more time interviewing candidates to check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you. It's Monday, and man, Dave, what the snow dump we got over the weekend here in Toronto, especially Sunday night. Holy cow! Hopefully everyone's driving safe and getting to work safe, or maybe there's a lot of remote workers out there that are kind of staying at home. And if that's the case, hopefully you're being safe as well. A couple really tough days there weather-wise, and it seems like it's going to be a rough winter all around, because I think we're expecting some snow again later in the week as well. So the Maple Leafs, though, let's get back into the Leafs. They lose to the Colorado Avalanche 4-1. Sleepy start. They kind of got a little something going in the second period, but then couldn't finish it out. Avalanche pretty well controlled the game, and the Maple Leafs fall 4-1. But interestingly enough, I think the most talked about thing coming out of that game wasn't the fact that they lost, wasn't the fact that they got off to the slow start. It was that pesky middle finger that William Nylander decided to give to the camera live on the broadcast, Dave. Like, what the hell was
on the Jumbotron too?
Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're injured. You're up in the press box, and you're flipping off cameras and smiling about it in the middle of a loss? What the hell is going on in that guy's head?
He did exactly what I did to the snow when I saw it outside. Like, I didn't notice it until later. I didn't really notice it on the broadcast when it happened.
I didn't either. I picked it up online and then obviously noticed, like, oh, this happened on the broadcast. But then you go and you watch it and you hear Gordon Miller
like,
it's like, oh, William. Like, oh, William. Like, he responds to it. He acknowledges that it happened live on air. Looks like there's a good chance that he ends up getting I'd imagine he'll get some sort of fine, because I believe this has happened before where, either the crowd's getting flipped off or,
Andrew Ferentz, I think, had a notable one where he flipped off the crowd one time.
Yeah, and you could see it through his glove. He had his gloves on, and he was on the ice, and he did it. Nylander does it while he's up in the press box in his clothes. I don't think he had the wife beater on up there today. Maybe a little too cold for the beater, but still, just an immature thing to do.
Move. It makes no sense. I get it. You're frustrated. Mike and I, Willie, I
don't understand.
Mike and I can show you a few things you can do that don't get you in hot water. You can do with your hands, other than flipping people off.
Yeah.
Okay, as Italians, we can show you a thing or two. Chris Tannen's reaction also is just like, he probably was like, is this dude being serious right now? Like,
I don't even know if he noticed what happened realistically. So he came out with an apology. Do you have the apology pulled up by chance? He took to Instagram, online social media, to apologize to the fan base. Obviously, the team caught wind and were like, hey, you got to say something about this. And he came out and he blamed it on frustration. You don't look like a frustrated guy to me, Dave. He was smiling and laughing when he did it. I don't know about you, but when I'm mad, I'm not smiling like that. That's a big old grin. He came out and said, only love for Leafs Nation. Sorry about my moment of frustration today. I didn't mean to upset anyone. Looking forward to being back on the ice and not in the stands. Love, Willie. And instead of the middle finger, he put the heart emoji over top of it. But like, he's literally smiling. Like, this isn't frustration. This is just being an idiot. Like, that's what that is, just being an idiot. And do I care that much? No. But it's like, just why? Like, it's just moronic, and it's going to cost him some pocket change. But it's just like, just a bit of an immature thing to do. That's all.
It's immature, it's unnecessary, and like it adds to what was already a brutal day for you. Like your team is getting pulverized without you in the lineup. It's the second time they're without you, and instead of doing what every other player is doing in that press box, which is either watch the game, talk with amongst each other, you decide to do this stupid smirk and flip off everybody. And it's just, I get it. He has a different personality. We have understood that for a long time with the way he acts. This has to be I don't think that apology, like the Instagram one, is enough. Personally, I think he has to come out and also say something too. He should also apologize to the camera person, because like he's kind of in a way flipping that person off more than the fans. Like
I'm sure the camera person. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I just think that, again, it's just one of those things where this team needs to rein in these things a lot better. They got to be like, team's not doing so hot right now. Like, this is not something we need to be talking about when our team is losing as well. Like, they're like, that just snowballs everything when a team is losing, and it's a fire. And we know that with this market, a fire can turn into like massive, like 3 alarm blaze with doesn't take much.
Oh yeah, just a little squirt of gasoline, and that's all it was. A little squirt of gasoline, but man, can that do some damage in this town? That's for sure. But hey, maybe that's what he was trying to do. Maybe he was trying to take the heat off of the guys on the ice, and maybe it was a leadership play. He's trying to take the heat off of the guys on the ice for a bad game and make all the conversation about Willie and his antics, so that the guys on the ice don't get beaten by the media. Maybe it was actually an honorable thing to do for William Nylander. Highly doubtful, but you never know. So one other piece of news really quickly, the Maple Leafs have canceled their open practice tomorrow due to extreme weather. You were going to actually be in attendance covering it.
I was planning my day for tomorrow. I saw it. Yeah. I was shoveling. I took a second. I looked at my phone. I got the notice that it was canceled. I'm like, yeah, fair.
Is it going to be rescheduled? Was there anything about
it didn't say anything about it being rescheduled, just that they did it for fan safety. Part of it, because the other reason they were doing this is because there's Raw happening. WWE's here in town. So it was going to be like a joint event with them. And I'm like, so that, I guess they're going to have to figure out something else, because I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm assuming a lot of these wrestlers that are in town are also like, it's good that we don't have to go out in the snow to a hockey rink.
The Leafs usually do an outdoor.
They do. This was I don't know if this was the time of year to really do something like that. They could have waited a little bit longer for it.
Maybe they will. Maybe they'll do it when they get back from the break. Possibly could be a time.
Yeah, that practice was actually supposed to be 5 minutes from my house. So, I know a lot of people in my area were sending me messages, but I was like, "Oh, I'm well aware." And then when it was canceled, it was also a lot of, well, that just sucks. I'm like, weather happens.
March 1st. They're going to reschedule for March 1st. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and they play Ottawa Feb 28th. They play Philly March 2nd, both in Toronto. It's really the only time that there's an opportunity to do it, because there's an off day in between, and do it on that off day. Boom. Done.
Great, Bob.
So there you go. You can take that, Maple Leafs. Just reschedule for March 1st to make everyone happy.
You get scheduled March 1st. We know where they got the idea.
Yes, because they definitely have not looked into that yet themselves. All right, buddy. We'll end it there. We'll get there's a lot going on with the Leafs around the NHL, but we'll get into that more on tomorrow's show. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys. Tomorrow, the Maple Leafs must win with the Sabres in town. I think so. We'll chat about it tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.